Let us execute an immediate sweeping analytical vector shift away from high-stakes domestic litigation warfare, weaponized prenuptial agreements, and the asset-stripping divorce standoffs of toxic suburban marriages, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of psychological survival anomalies, weaponized lifestyle aesthetic performance loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an elite social media asset running a raw tactical identity loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, dread-slicked parameters of an unsettling rural time distortion matrix, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating, mind-shattering cultural disorientation puzzle with Yesteryear, the exceptional, pulse-pounding satirical suspense thriller masterpiece engineered by the sensational breakout sovereign of contemporary social critique and deep woods domestic paranoia, Caro Claire Burke. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where an elite lifestyle influencer asset running an unyielding brand safety loop, a calculating shadow net of survival challenges running a brutal 19th century simulation routine, and an absolute defense of a woman's core identity matrix collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged historical environments, corrupt familial expectations, and a deadly ring of active psychological gaslighting while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised farmstead ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep tactical reasoning, calculated household boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory setup, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, famous modern tradwife influencer wakes up stripped of electricity and knobbies, trapped in the brutal hand-to-mouth reality of an 1855 homestead diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. Burke completely dominates the high-precision identity jeopardy meets suffocating historical captivity puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre varks like Gillian Flynn, Nita Prose, Margaret Atwood, and Ira Levin, while treating realistic colonial frontier logistics, complex generational alignment arcs, and protective high-density personal extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, Natalie Heller Mills, operating under a severe, calculation-heavy handicap of absolute modern withdrawal, intensive environmental isolation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a bizarre societal sandbox. Behind Natalie's rigorous brand-curated lifestyle footprints, defensive aesthetic staging, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried personal hypocrisies, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following a high-profile public relations catastrophe involving her curated ranch empire, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an encroaching offline reality, parsing complex behavioral shifts from her supposed alternative family nodes, and shielding her vulnerable mental sovereignty grid from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless psychological offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. After a lifetime of monetizing a heavily manicured, highly deceptive version of domestic bliss for millions of digital followers, Natalie opens her eyes to find her smart home technology, industrial appliances, and behind-the-scenes support networks entirely scrubbed from existence. She is stranded inside a sputtering, fire-warmed wilderness shelter where the children are feral strangers, her soft-handed corporate husband has transformed into a weathered woodsman, and the environment demands grueling, blood-drawing manual labor just to register basic baseline caloric survival. Behind this terrifying frontier facade and clinical seasonal metric lies an intricate matrix of systemic entrapment, a history of deep-seated familial control, and a cold, calculation-heavy social experimentation blueprint. As the hostile environment execution phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a dual timeline mystery, her rogue counter-surveillance attempts and a brutal snare-trap physical trauma reveal that she is running completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active, invisible war against her own mind, where the ultimate question shifts between an elaborate reality television hoax, an active divine retribution, or a staggering structural time anomaly designed to execute her complete erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as her internal and environmental warfare turns completely active, transforming the large freezing crop fields, dark wood cabins, and private fortified survival zones into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral profiling skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve her focus before her environment's relentless calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries.
The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy continuous physical gaslighting, systemic isolation loops, and persistent psychological dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize that when a curated asset survival threshold is crossed, her hardened resilience and shifting counter-narratives match her invisible captor's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight excavation of hidden forest parameters, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching companion behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Deception Network's perimeters completely unwrapped as Caro Claire Burke reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial frontier winter or managing a difficult physical injury. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of societal manipulation and philosophical control. While the shifting dual narrative streams smooth over her psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around her ultimate escape vector, a brutal series of close-quarters environmental confrontations and high-stakes chronological breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated secrets from her past timeline have tracked her to her final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological suspense, satirical domestic noir, dystopian identity mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep cultural logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one uncovered historical anomaly triggers a fatal wilderness breakout energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Burke writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, raw milk, wood smoke, cold forest earth, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Yesteryear is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival trading, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.